You are listening to the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, I'm sharing the 3 lessons that having mastitis taught me about succeeding in online business. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, a registered dietitian, nutrition business coach, and online entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in online business. And I'm here to show you everything I've learned about creating a life and a business that nourishes you. On this podcast, we'll talk about the lifestyle habits, practical strategies, mindset shifts, and leaps of faith required to build a healthy body, a powerful mind, a strong spirit, and a successful business. Hey there, welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, your host as always, and today I have a little bit of an interesting angle to take when it comes to talking about business, and it's based on an experience I had recently with mastitis, which if you have ever had mastitis before, you probably know how terrible it is. And if you haven't had it before, there's some things you probably want to do to avoid it if you ever end up having a baby and breastfeeding in the future. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of details about the solution to mastitis. That's not the goal of this podcast. But what I want to talk about is what mastitis taught me about online business. So I'll just tell you a little bit about my experience. This was last week, and I had been feeding my baby overnight a few times, a few days in a row where it was like, 2 to 3 feedings between the time I got into bed and the time we got out of bed, which was unusual for her. I'm not sure if she was going through a growth spurt or, who knows, right? She's just about 3 months old now. So lots of stuff happening with her growth and development. And I think it had been like, 4 or 5 days in a row that she was eating multiple times a night. And then on a Saturday night, she just so happened to sleep through the night, which she had been doing that for a bit since she was born. She actually has been a pretty good sleeper since day one. I mean, here and there, not having the best night of sleep, but definitely, way better than I expected as a new mom as far as sleep is concerned. And I was excited when she was sleeping through the night again because I was like, yes, I get to sleep and I don't have to wake up and feed her multiple times. But that night that she had slept through the night, I woke up with very full breasts. And I was like, ooh, this is pretty uncomfortable, but I don't know. Maybe I could sleep a little longer. She's not awake. Maybe I don't have to feed her. I think I did end up feeding her on one side, but I didn't feed her on both sides and I didn't get up to pump. And I was like, whatever, yeah, it's uncomfortable, but I'll just sleep through it. And I'm pretty sure that was my mistake, my fatal error, as they say. So if you are someone who has not ever had mastitis before and you want to avoid it in the future, just take it from me. Do not go and let your boobs get super full of milk and then not empty them in some way, shape, or form. It's not a good idea. But now I know that. I have learned it the hard way. So on Monday morning, actually, maybe it was Sunday night, I started to feel a little off, but then Monday morning I woke up and definitely felt sick. And the reason why I knew it was mastitis is because I had a lot of pain and I had redness in one of my breasts, like, this big red patch underneath it. And I had a fever. It wasn't too bad on Monday morning, but it definitely got worse over time. And I had a lot of body aches. It basically just felt like I had the flu minus any sort of respiratory symptoms. And then I believe by the afternoon, I was up into the low hundreds for the fever. And Tuesday, the next day, it was, 103, 103.5 as far as the peak was concerned. And that was when I decided to get antibiotics for it because I was trying to get away without taking antibiotics. And it was, I try to do everything naturally, and I know that antibiotics are not ideal, and I really didn't want to take them, but I'm also not totally against modern medicine. And the level of fever that I had and how bad I felt, I was just like, I think this is more than just inflammation. I think this could be infectious. So I got the antibiotics, and within several hours, I was already feeling somewhat better. And then Wednesday, I woke up probably like 70% improved. And that's based on Tuesday being completely stuck in bed, like could not hardly even sit up in bed, let alone get out of bed. I was just sleeping like all day. So it was a rough experience. It was not, I just came out of nowhere. I was not expecting that to happen. I guess not a lot of people are expecting to get mastitis or expecting to get sick, but it literally went from me feeling like pretty good. I feel like I slept well, baby's doing well, everything's fine, to the next day literally being incapacitated in bed. And this just so happened to coincide with me getting way more into work again. So I'd been on maternity leave for like 10, 11 weeks. And around week 10 was when I started getting back into my business. And the week that I got mastitis was a week where I had a lot of plans to create some new marketing materials, a new mini course that some of you might have seen. And of course, I just got like totally knocked out in the beginning of that week. So I'm better now. Everything's fine. It was short-lived, and even though it was very intense, it didn't last too long, thank goodness. And I definitely noticed some things that came up during that time, good and bad, that informed not only how I'm approaching my own business, but also how I'm coaching my clients who are growing their online health and nutrition businesses. So I have 3 lessons that I'm going to share with you that came from that experience. And I think they should apply to you no matter what type of business you're running, what stage of business that you're in. And also if you're just a mom that realizes that you can't do everything by yourself and that you need people to help you. So the first lesson that mastitis taught me about online business is the value of a niche. And if you're one of my clients, we talk about niching all the time. Maybe you're sick of hearing about it, but niching is one of those topics that as time goes on, I get more and more passionate about it, because the more people that come into online business, the more niching matters. And the reason why this came up when I had mastitis is because as I was laying there totally, I hate to say dying, I tend to be a little dramatic sometimes, but I literally was like, I can't move, I can't get up, I can't do anything other than maybe get up to go to the bathroom. My husband was bringing me the baby to feed her every few hours. He was bringing me water. He was bringing me a smoothie. Like I literally was just like, I can't move. And in that state of extreme pain, discomfort, frustration, just felt terrible and was like, oh my gosh, I have so much stuff I wanted to get done this week and I can't do any of it. I was pretty desperate for a solution. And there was a lot of different things that I experimented with. One of them was a course that was literally just, I think it was called Mastitis Rescue. It's by a company that on Instagram, their handle is Your 2 Jugs. And I came across them because I saw, if you guys are familiar with Manifestation Babe, aka Catherine Zenkina, who's the owner of that business, she just had a baby and she had gotten mastitis, I think, a few weeks ago. And she had mentioned finding this course, Mastitis Rescue, through the Your 2 Jugs company. And I just happened to remember her mentioning that when I got mastitis. And so I went and found their Instagram account and literally bought their mastitis course without any sort of marketing experience. Like I hadn't even been following them. I didn't see a webinar. I didn't see a sales page. I just went straight and was just like, give me the course. And this was because they listed themselves on their Instagram profile. One of the things that they're experts in is mastitis. So if somebody's going to call themselves a mastitis expert, and that's what their whole business is based on, and that's what all the content that they had on their Instagram was based on, that made me feel pretty confident that they were the ones I wanted to buy some support from. So I bought their course. It was like a super short course. I think it was like $12 US. So, obviously not very expensive, but I would have paid more for it because I don't actually know if there's any other courses out there specifically on mastitis. And I, like I said, was desperate. And I just remember thinking, wow, like this is really the ideal business model to have, where you have such a specific problem that you solve and such a high pain point problem that people will buy from you, even if you just, came across their feed minutes ago or hours ago, right? So because I was in so much pain and I wanted to solve this problem so bad, I was literally willing to spend whatever money it took. I was willing to try whatever approach that I thought might work to get me over the major symptoms. And that was just because I was in so much pain. I've mentioned to a few people who were commiserating with me about having had mastitis. I said, I literally don't know if I've ever been this sick before acutely. Like, I've been sick for a longer time stretch than 2 days, but the acuteness and the inability to get out of bed, I don't know if I've ever felt like that before. And the last time I was sick was like 2 years ago, and I had COVID, and I didn't feel great with COVID, but I felt better with COVID than I felt with mastitis, just to give you a reference point if you've never had it before. So literally, I don't want to say 10 out of 10 pain, because I think my final hour or so of labor was probably 10 out of 10 pain, but it was definitely up there, like, 8 out of 10 as far as intensity is concerned. And because of the pain I was in, and this is literal physical pain, it's not just like emotional or mental pain. The amount of pain I was in, I was really willing to do whatever I needed to do and spend whatever I needed to spend to solve the issue. And the reason why this is important is because I think a lot of people that are running businesses, especially in the online health and nutrition space, they don't want to get specific about what they do for their clients. They want to stay broad. They want to try to cover a bunch of different health issues. And I get it. I used to do that too. And part of it is because the human body is complicated, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that plays into each other. Like you can be a hormone expert, but also help people with gut health, but also help people with weight loss. And it's like all these different things can all work together in somebody's body. But it's so much easier to sell something when you're pinpointing that really, really specific problem. And I'm not saying you have to sell a mastitis course, but I'm using this as an example to show you how much easier it is to sell something when you go for a very specific and very significant pain point for your clients. The more pain that your client is in, the more they're going to be willing to take action, and possibly the more they're going to be willing to spend to solve the problem. And so you want to be thinking about that with your business. Are you solving a very specific and significant pain point for your clients in any particular offer that you're selling? So if you have more than one offer, those offers can address different pain points. Like, for example, the Year 2 Jugs company, they have a mastitis program. And then they have a program called Boobology, which from a marketing perspective, the mastitis rescue course is like super clear. I know exactly what I'm getting, and it was very easy for me to say yes to buying that. My opinion about their other program called Boobology, which is meant to help with more like maintaining breast health and supporting breast health, especially through breastfeeding. To me, that's a little less clear what the tangible transformation is. And I'm not as willing to not only spend the money, but spend the time to go through a course called Boobology, because I'm like, I don't really know if I need that or what the benefit is necessarily going to be. Versus the mastitis course, I was like, give it to me now kind of thing. So you might have the same kind of challenge in your business, where if you're not being very specific and targeted with the pain point you solve in your offer, you might struggle to sell stuff. And I'm not saying that these people are struggling to sell their Boobology course. Maybe it's doing great and I have no idea. But as their customer, I definitely found it a little bit more difficult to contemplate buying their Boobology course versus their mastitis course. Was a no-brainer yes for me. So this is what I teach my clients in my Nutrition Business Accelerator program, to really get as specific as possible with the pain point that they solve, because the more specific it is, the more it's going to resonate with the people that are experiencing it, and the more easy it's going to be to invite them into the sale, essentially, and get them to take action, get them to invest in that program. Now, I know that, again, when you're selling an offer, and a lot of people want to be broad, and also there's a lot of health professionals out there that feel like it's super unethical to talk about pain points, which I think there's an ethical and an unethical way to talk about pain points. I'm going to use the mastitis thing as an example, because nobody had to tell me how much pain I was in for the mastitis. It's not like I had to land on a sales page from that company and read all of this copy about, mastitis is the worst. And, how much does it suck to be in so much pain and to not be able to get out of bed and to have no energy and to feel like, you can't even move and blah, 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 right? Like all the different ways that they could be like pushing on my pain points. Because I was already in so much pain, I didn't need them to tell me that I was in pain. All they had to do is say, hey, we understand what pain you're in and we can help you get out of that pain. That was all they needed to do. And it wasn't some kind of unethical, like, making me feel worse than I already did type of marketing. It was literally just acknowledging that, yes, this is a really painful condition and it's confusing and there's a lot of inaccurate information about how to solve it. In our course, you'll get the accurate information and the way that works for our clients. That was pretty much all they had to do, right? So if you're worried about talking about your clients' pain points because you think it's going to be unethical or, you don't want to make them feel bad about themselves, there is definitely a way to do it where you can be honest about the situation that they're in and also be compassionate and not necessarily like rub their face in it, right? So identifying these pain points is really, really important as part of your marketing strategy. We go into a ton of detail in our Nutrition Business Accelerator program on how to identify those pain points and how to create a program that solves those pain points in the most quick and efficient way for your clients. And that's something that's going to make your offer so much more attractive to your ideal client if they understand how it relates to the pain that they're already in. So you don't need to create pain. You don't need to make somebody feel worse about themselves than they might already feel. All you have to do is acknowledge the way that they're already feeling and let them know, hey, it's not your fault that you're feeling this way. You might have learned bad information, or maybe you didn't realize that this was going to be a problem, and it's okay, we can help. And you're just showing them that there is a way out. So I think that's really, really important. Again, if you're one of my clients, you probably are tired of me talking about niching, but this was a very tangible experience that I had demonstrating the power of a really clear and specific niche for an online business in the health space. And if you can't clearly explain the pain point that you solve for your clients in your offers, that's going to make it much harder to sell, if even, maybe it'll be impossible to sell because the people don't understand what you're going to help them with. So that was the first big lesson. And that's something that it just further emphasizes the importance of niching. And I'm constantly talking about niching with my clients. So, I know sometimes it can get a little repetitive if you're hearing it over and over, but that experience for me was just really powerful for bringing that point home. And now I'm taking that experience and infusing it into the way that I coach my clients because, as the nutrition marketplace gets more and more crowded, because it is, I hate to say it, it is getting more crowded as time goes on. More people are starting online businesses. We have to be able to differentiate ourselves and we have to be able to connect our services with our ideal client's main pain point. And if you haven't even identified the pain point that your customer is experiencing, then it's going to be really hard to connect with it in your marketing. Okay, so I will wrap that up as far as the niche conversation is concerned. But again, if you're in an online business, whether it's in the health space or some other kind of service-oriented online business, you really, really do need a strong, clear, and tangible niche to grow your business in the most effective way possible. Okay, so the second lesson I learned during my bout of mastitis was that I need to get even more out of my business if I want it to grow. So I mentioned to you guys that I had a lot of stuff I wanted to get done that week. That was a week that I was ramping up my involvement in the business and had a bunch of projects that I wanted to knock out that kind of were time sensitive. And I had a plan for what I wanted to be working on. And because I literally couldn't do anything, basically, I could barely get out of bed. I joined our team meeting, but I didn't even get on video. I was just on my phone with my eyes closed, listening in and sharing if I needed to share. But I pretty much couldn't do anything I'd plan on doing. Now, my team is small, but very mighty. They picked up a ton of slack for me the few days that I was sick. So I shout out to my team. You guys are awesome. Really saved my butt in that moment because there was stuff that had to get done that day that I was somebody needs to do this. So they helped a ton, and they really saved the day for me for, the things that needed to get done. But there were a few things that I literally was the only person who could do it. So I had to push it off to later in the week when I wasn't as sick as I was those 2 days. So one of the things I noticed during those 2 days where I really couldn't work almost at all is that if I am not doing things in my business, like if I'm not the one actually showing up and working in my business at this moment, we don't really have a very powerful sales machine. So that's something that I want to create. And after I had my baby, it became more of a priority for me because, we've done pretty well. We usually do about $600K in revenue every year, at least in the last couple of years. So, I know that's not as much as some other people do, but I'm very proud of that. And, it's something that I'm sure a lot of you listening probably think is awesome. So it's all perspective, right? But, we have goals for what we want the business to be able to achieve financially. And I very much realized when I was sick with mastitis that one of the things that's holding us back from hitting those next level goals, which really the next big goal is to hit $1 million in a year for revenue. I know it's kind of like a cliche, random. It's not random. It's like everybody wants to hit $1 million, right? Or if you want to hit your first 6 figures, once you hit your first 6 figures, then you want to hit multi 6 figures. And then once you hit multi 6 figures, then you want to hit 7 figures. It's kind of like that natural progression in an online business. So we're at that stage where I'm like, I want to see if we can get to $1 million in a year. I really do believe we can. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to. I think there's a lot of businesses out there that are doing $1 million or more that aren't better businesses than ours. So, or they don't have better products than ours. So I know that it's possible for us. But what happened when I was sick was I realized that one of the things that's going to possibly hold us back from hitting that next revenue goal is the fact that our business can't right now make substantial income unless I'm heavily involved. Now, when I say heavily involved, I'm not talking about the delivery of the services because I don't think I'm ever going to have a business where I just don't participate. I know some people really want that kind of business where it's just running in the background and they can go off and live this totally off the computer life. And honestly, I really enjoy the work that I do. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy connecting with my clients, whether that's a group program or the very occasional one-on-one that I do. I really do love it. It's like I get into that flow state and I feel like I'm really talented at it. I hope all of you feel like you're talented at the work that you're doing, but it's something where I know our business needs me to be pulled out of the sales process more if we're going to hit that 7-figure revenue goal. So the reason why this was brought up when I had mastitis is because a lot of the stuff I wanted to do that week was related to selling one of our programs. And if I wasn't able to do it, then literally there was not going to be any sales of the program happening. And we have a deadline for getting our next round started. I think by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have already started our next round of the NBA program. But if I'm not driving the sales in our business, then we're not selling the NBA program. And that doesn't mean we don't sell a lot of it. We do great with it. It's been amazing and I'm so proud of it. But again, it's that next step, right? It's one of the things about being a CEO of your business is you have to be able to know what your best next step is. And for me, with the big life changes that we've had, with the fact that I don't want to be working full time because I want to spend time with my baby and my husband and my friends and doing things outside and all the things that I like to do with my life, I know that the next step for our business is to pull me more out of the sales process for our signature programs, the ones that are really making the bulk of our revenue. So I recognize that the next big step that I need to focus on and prioritize in my business is creating the systems that allow us to sell our more signature services all the time, even when I'm not available and I'm not working. And I know exactly how to do this. I know the steps I need to take. I know the process for doing it. It's just a matter of doing it. And as the face of the business, these are the things that I can't outsource. Like I can't outsource creating a webinar or a training or, doing the big picture marketing stuff for our core programs. But there's so many other things I can outsource. I can outsource the lead generation. Like, we could be running Facebook ads. I have a person on my team that helps with social media creation and, even with the podcast, that's something that I have lots of team support with producing this and getting it out to you guys. So there's things that I could be doing to outsource more of the lead and audience building part of the business. And again, Facebook ads are something that are the fastest way. I think paid ads is the fastest way to get in front of a lot of people. So that's a part of our business that we're expanding to. But even if you're getting in front of more people, if the only way I can sell my services is by running this big launch, which even though I love the launch that we created, I didn't feel like I was going to be able to do it this fall right after having a baby because it takes a lot of energy. It's very time and focus intensive. And I, didn't know if I was going to wake up with mastitis or I'm going to wake up and my baby's sick or she's going to, have a rough night and I'm going to be running on just a few hours of sleep. Like my life is too unpredictable right now to be confident in running such a just intricate launch process like the ones that we've done before for the NBA program. So my goal is to figure out another way to sell our services and sell our coaching programs that doesn't involve a massive launch. Now, that doesn't mean I won't do the launch again because like I said, I love the launch that we created. It's really effective. It works really well. And also I think people get a lot out of it. And I do enjoy doing it when I have the bandwidth for it. But I also didn't want that to be something that my business needs in order to bring in revenue. So for me, I'm still exploring this. This is something that we're working on developing in the business now is some way to have ongoing sales happening and not just like twice a year. It's just going to take time. That's the thing about business is anytime you make a change to your sales mechanism, there's going to be some experimentation. There's going to be some, tweaking that has to happen, some trial and error, all the stuff that goes into nailing that sales mechanism. We're basically experimenting with a brand new sales mechanism and therefore have to do it from scratch, which in some ways is fun because if it's working well, then I can then teach it to my clients. And if it's not working well, then it was something that we tried and we can go back to the thing that we know works and just adapt as necessary, right? But these are all the kind of things that I think about as the CEO of the business because at the end of the day, because my life is as unpredictable as it is right now, I feel very strongly that I need the business to be more predictable. And I know that there's ways to make it more predictable, and that's what we're working on right now. And not to say that it's completely unpredictable. Like I feel like our launches, we've gotten them down to a place where I do feel pretty confident that they'll bring in a certain level of clients when we run them. But just that unpredictability of even how am I going to show up on a day-to-day basis with the baby? Like the unpredictable nature of a newborn, especially as young as she is. I just know that I need that extra predictable type of business model. And so, like I said, we're exploring it right now. It's very much in the beginning stages of experimentation, and I'm hoping that it'll work. I see other people doing it in a way that works, and I know that we have the capability to create it. It's just trying to shift what our old way of doing it was into a new way and make adjustments and changes to the way that we serve our clients, the way that we enroll people, the exact sales process, lots of different things that we're getting adjusted. So I know that's a little cryptic, but it would have to be probably its whole own episode if I was going to talk about the exact behind the scenes of what we're creating. But I just wanted to give you a big picture view of how I'm thinking about this, the kind of like decision-making process I'm going through, because I think if any of you are the CEO of your business, which I hope a lot of you are, a lot of what you do is decision-making. And if you can learn from someone who's quote unquote ahead of you as far as business is concerned to discover how they make decisions, what kind of things they think about. That just helps you step into that higher level role. And it's the same thing I do. Like I work with a mentor that their business does, I think right now it's like $11 million a year in revenue. So I look at what he and his team are doing and the kind of decisions they make and how they make decisions as inspiration for what's my next move and what do I need to be doing as the CEO and what do I need to not be doing? What are CEO tasks and what are not CEO tasks? And really being able to strip away anything that's not essential for me to be doing and either give it to somebody else or stop doing it or shift how we do it and really get to a place where the business can continue to grow and to reach that bigger revenue goal that we have without it being so dependent on how I feel on a day-to-day basis. And I really feel like anyone who has children probably needs to have a business model like that where the business can still run even if they had a rough night or their kid's sick and they can't, be undistracted on the computer for the day. It's tough. I mean, it's definitely something that I have learned a lot about in a very short period of time. And I'm sure I will continue learning because so far I really do think Vera has been quite I don't want to say low needs because she's a baby, but like not a high needs baby, I guess. Like she I think is pretty low key as far as like needing to be fed, needing to sleep, like all that stuff. It's not like she has a lot of illnesses she's dealing with or, her night and day cycles are totally flipped. Like I've heard a lot of horror stories from people with their babies having like, waking up every hour to feed kind of thing at night. We have not had that experience, knock wood. Hopefully it doesn't happen in the future. But, even with the ease that Vera has brought in as how she has contributed to the experience, it's still not easy. And I really feel like us moms need to have a business model that works with a lifestyle that's not this perfect routine that you can just show up and control your whole day. Because I really feel like before I had Vera, I had a lot of control over my day. I had a lot of control about how I spent my time. I had a lot of control about how I felt, my energy levels, and that's just not the same anymore. And so I know that the business needs to adjust so that I can do what I need to do as a mother and also show up as the best CEO and coach in my business as possible and allow the business to continue growing without being dependent on me having the perfect night's sleep or Vera, having the perfect health. Anyway, that'll be something I think I'm going to talk a lot about more in the future is that whole combination of motherhood and business ownership because I think there's not enough people talking about it. And there are so many women that I work with that have children and we just have to do it differently. And we have to do it in a way that works with our lifestyle. Okay. Obviously you can tell I'm passionate about this stuff. It's definitely a crash course in, surrender and adaptation in the last 3 months. And again, I know it's just going to continue / maybe get even more challenging as she continues to grow. But I think it's a good challenge. And obviously I'm very happy to have my daughter and I love her. And so, it's just a new way of living that needs to be adapted to. Now that brings me to the third lesson that I learned during my mastitis experience. And that is the importance of your village. Now, this goes for anyone that has kids, but I really think especially if you run your own business, creating and cultivating and investing in your village is critical. So there's a couple different levels of village or community that I'm going to talk about that came into play during my illness. The first is my literal in-person village. So my husband, who is part-time in our business and no longer is working a full-time job, stays home to, I don't want to say help with the baby because I actually don't love that terminology because he's not helping with the baby. He's parenting. But we take turns, right? So it's not like he's the full-time parent. He really took care of her the whole day for 1.5 days. One day my mom came over in the afternoon to help out by just keeping Vera entertained, which is literally a job in and of itself, trying to keep a 3-month-old entertained, especially one that is not super interested in toys or anything yet. She just wants to make tons of eye contact. So it's difficult if you can't keep your eyes open to keep a baby like that entertained. So my mom came over and I was really grateful for that. She just, like I said, hung out with the baby for a few hours, gave my husband an opportunity to go grocery shopping. So, was definitely necessary to have somebody taking care of her those days, which, side note, I literally do not know how people do it if they're single moms or their husband works full time and they don't have family in the area. If that's you, God bless you, because I literally have no idea what I would have done. I might have just left her in the bedside bassinet and kept my hand on her all day. I'm not really sure how that would have gone, but thankfully my husband is around full time essentially. And so he took care of her. Of course, I had to feed her because I'm the one that produces the food. But other than that, I was able to sleep and get the rest that I needed during that illness. And so having that in-person village, whether it's family, spouse, friends. I did have a friend that offered to pick up my medication. I didn't need her to because my husband was able to, but had he not been able to, of course, that was a super generous offer from her. But these are examples of those in-person relationships that a lot of times I don't think we necessarily prioritize. And it's something that, especially as parents, we need to have that in-person team to be able to roll with the punches that life throws at us. So I think my ability to rest those 2 days allowed me to get better faster, which allowed me to get back to the work that I needed to do faster. So if you are an entrepreneur that has kids, really doing whatever you can to cultivate that in-person village and those relationships with friends, neighbors, family, whoever's in your immediate local area. It's so important. And I think it's really easy to forget about those, especially when you're running an online business and you're like locked away in your home office all day. I just feel like the time that I spend cultivating those relationships is so important at those times that I need somebody to literally be there in person for me. So there's that level of village, which is a little bit more of your traditional village. But then now we can start to think about your bigger virtual village. So I have a lot of friends and even clients in the health space that when they found out I was dealing with mastitis, because I shared about it on Instagram, they gave me a ton of recommendations for how to heal. Now, I obviously didn't take all of them because I probably got like 30 different recommendations and I couldn't necessarily take action on every single one. But just knowing that I had options and knowing that there was some empathy and solidarity coming from those people that had it before and were like, oh, this is what worked for me. Just having that access to an online community of health experts was so helpful. So, if you're in the health and nutrition space, making sure that you are connecting with colleagues online and building that community and those relationships for when you're struggling, whether it's personal struggles, business struggles, just having somebody to reach out to and get support from, or even just get some solidarity and empathy from, makes such a huge difference when you're dealing with those big challenges that come up. And I mentioned that we were making some big decisions about our marketing and sales strategy, and there was a lot of work I was going to be doing that week to execute that strategy, but I was having a hard time making some decisions about stuff. Part of that, I think, is just because my brain was so fried with, my 103-degree fever and not sleeping well and just like all the things that were going on. I just felt like I was really struggling to finalize a big decision that I needed to make. And so I reached out to my coach, who I have invested in for his mentorship and his support. And I was able to have I think it was like an hour and a half phone call with him about that decision. And he gave me a ton of insight. He didn't tell me what to do because he's a good coach. So he didn't just give me the answer. But he talked through a lot of the different things I needed to be thinking about when making that decision. And it really did help me figure out what mattered when it came to making that decision so that I could make it with confidence. So having a mentor and a coach that you can reach out to when you're struggling is something that, again, if it's in business or if you're just struggling to balance business and life and you need some help coming up with your plan or prioritizing things, that's where a coach and a mentor can really make a huge impact on your experience and help you not feel so alone in your decision-making process and really shorten the timeline when it comes to the time it takes to make these decisions. So I was very grateful that my coach was available. I almost didn't get on the phone with him because I was so sick, but I started to feel a little better after taking the antibiotics. So I was like, all right, I need to make this decision ASAP. So I will take him up on his offer to get on the call. And I did my best to stay present and absorb what he was saying, even though my brain was partial mush. Now, the reason why this is relevant for me personally is because I'm often the kind of person who wants to do everything myself. If you guys listen to my birth story, it was the 2-parter all about the birth of Vera that I recorded with my husband. One of the things I discovered during that process of giving birth was that I tend to struggle with letting other people do stuff for me and, releasing the need to do everything myself. And it's still something I'm working on. Like I probably will be working on this until the day I die, I assume, because it's like baked hardcore into my personality. And there's pros and cons, right? Like there's a lot of benefits that come from being the kind of person who's very independent and a go-getter and like, I'm going to do it myself. There's benefits, right? So there's always pros and cons to any of our behaviors. And the con to that behavior is that there's going to be times in life where you can't do it all, and probably a lot more often than we even realize. And that couple of days of being completely incapacitated gave me that opportunity to really lean heavily on my community, both the in-person community and my virtual community. I did mention before my team did a ton of work, took up responsibilities that I was planning on doing and did it for me. And just having that support network and actually asking for support, which I think sometimes we don't realize, like you can have all the support available, but if you don't ask for it and accept it, you're not going to get it. Just that willingness to ask and receive support is something that I, again, am learning is so important for me, especially as someone who is such an independent, like I'll do it myself kind of person. So, hopefully I can learn that lesson so I don't have to keep having these experiences of literally being, brought to rock bottom as far as my abilities are concerned. But, I feel like that's part of God's process of humbling me even more than I've ever been before. And so it is something that I know is going to make me a better business owner, a better mom, a better friend, the more I can rely on others and not try to do it all myself and not try to be this super independent person. But again, it's something that is one of my big struggles and something that I think is going to take some time for me to really get the hang of, even as I keep having these experiences of, literally can't do this myself, please help kind of moments. So if you are like me and you're the kind of person that tries to do everything yourself, I would encourage you to start looking at, first of all, how is that serving you? And maybe it's not, and maybe it's actually holding you back from reaching the results that you want, whether that's in your life or your business, your health. If you're trying to do everything for everyone else and you're never accepting any help, it's going to be really hard for you to be experiencing your best life, your best well-being, mental, spiritual, physical, your best ability to run a business if you're an entrepreneur. And the more we can accept help, the more potential we have for reaching those goals that we have. So cultivating your village definitely takes time, and it takes effort. It takes sometimes a financial commitment if you want to be part of a business group that people are paying to be a part of, which is what I do in my mastermind that I'm in every year. It definitely takes energy to grow that village, to hire a team, to train your team, to cultivate friendships, to invest in coaching, all the different ways that you can build that community and that village. But I truly believe it's something that whether you're a mom or not, we have to have in order to actually thrive in our lives. And it's something that as time goes on, and now that I'm a mom, I just appreciate it so much more than I ever did before. And I know that if we have more children, or, I want to grow my business even bigger than it is now, I know that leaning on others and trusting others and taking support from others, accepting that support is most likely going to be one of the big keys that unlocks the next level of transformation in my life. And the more I can demonstrate that for you guys, I know that the more you can start to take those actions and feel like, okay, this isn't just me not being able to handle it all. This is me making a decision that having help is actually the answer to me reaching the goals that I have for myself. So that's the journey I've been on. And like I said, the mastitis experience definitely brought these things to light for me. And just to recap what we talked about today, when I had mastitis, it helped me realize how important it is to have a high value niche that solves a significant pain point for your clients if you want to make sales really easy in your business. It showed me that as much as I've gotten out of the business operations, there's still a lot more to do to get me out of really the sales element of my business now in order to reach our next level. And it just further emphasized the importance of the village that I've cultivated both in person and virtually between my relationship with my spouse and working to get to a place where he can not have a full-time job and be very, very involved in the home stuff. To, the relationships I've built online with my virtual community, to the mentor that I've invested in, all the different things that I've done to create that network of support. That is critical in times of need, especially when you're, in a place where you literally can't do the things that you wanted to do and you need to reach out and get that help. All right. So those are my lessons. I'm sure there's other things I learned, but all I'll say is I'm super glad that experience is over. I hope it never happens again. Definitely going to be very mindful of doing what I need to do to avoid that. Hopefully we're out of the woods as far as the breastfeeding journey is concerned. And I feel like we're starting to get into a rhythm with that. And I'm starting to feel more confident with it and more comfortable with it. So fingers crossed. We're in the home stretch here and we're good until, she's weaned. But at the end of the day, like sickness happens and we can't always prevent it. And we have to have the systems and network and community in place to help us get through those tough times so that our whole life isn't just like crumbling anytime something happens to us that we weren't expecting. So I hope that you found this conversation valuable. I would love to connect with you if you learned something important today or if you've had your own experience that you want to share. Please connect with me on Instagram. My handle is at Laura Schoenfeld RD. RD stands for Registered Dietitian. And I just want to hear what you're learning from this podcast. We've been doing the podcast. I think this is episode 156. So it's been going on for a while. I think we're into like year 3. If we're doing weekly episodes, that would make sense. And I really want to make sure that we're creating content that's super valuable for you. So if you're a regular listener, or maybe you just started listening and you have some feedback for me about what else you're looking to hear about, what you want to learn about, what kind of stuff you like, what kind of guests you like, or if you're like, oh, I just really want to hear more solo episodes, I want to hear from you because yes, I enjoy doing the podcast, but I'm really doing it more to connect with you guys and to create value in your life. And if I'm not creating value in your life, then there's probably no point of me having a podcast. So let me know, what are you liking? What do you want to see more of? And I would just love to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to reach out via DM on Instagram, and I look forward to connecting. All right, well, that's it for me this week. I hope you guys have a great week yourself, and I'll look forward to seeing you here next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Are you a nutritionist or dietitian struggling to figure out how much to charge for your programs and services? Maybe you've heard that as a nutritionist, you should just charge what you're worth. But this way of thinking can cause you to either undercharge your clients or work yourself into the ground trying to earn your worth. As a healthcare provider, you can't set up a pricing structure that forces you to sacrifice your own health and well-being in the name of your business and your clients. But I promise it doesn't have to be this way. When you download my free profit planning workbook, I'll walk you step by step through the 10-step process for determining the right pricing for your nutrition business. As a nutritionist, you have the power to completely change someone's life for the better. There's huge value in that, so it's time to stop underselling what you do. By following along with this worksheet, you can determine exactly what you need to charge to achieve your revenue goals with ease. I'll teach you everything I've learned about pricing from growing my own nutrition business to over $250,000 in revenue annually and helping other dietitian and nutrition entrepreneurs hit their first $10,000 to $30,000 months and beyond. To get your free workbook, go to lauraschoenfeld.com/profit, PROFIT, and grab your copy today, so you no longer have to wonder how to set the right rates for your incredibly valuable nutrition services. That's lauraschoenfeld.com/profit. It's time to make the money that you deserve as a nutritionist, and I can't wait to help you get there.